here for the rest of their lives. I mean that. In 1991, I came here with a friend in college, and today I still have people ask about him, and he's never been back. He came for one time. So you're making a lifetime impact on some children. So thank you for serving the way you are. I just want to tell you a little bit about how this all came to be, and then answer some questions if you have any, and then we'll pray and you guys can eat. So when I was 5 years old, my mom and dad brought me here for the first time. As I was a little guy, I fell in love with the country. My first memory of Haiti is being on the south side after a church service, and a little guy came up to me, and he handed me a bunch of bananas. And that really spoke to me. I was kind of a fat kid growing up, and this little guy was really skinny, and he was giving up food to me. Really touched me. But as I grew up in southern Indiana, coming here year after year, never thought I'd move here. In 1997, though, I'd been married a year, my wife and I came here, and we were visiting a piece of property my mom and dad had traded a pipe organ for in 1989. This pastor we knew in Port-au-Prince said, hey, I've got land where the goats are on, some goats are on outside of town. If you can get me a pipe organ, I'll give you the land. So my mom and dad got this pipe organ. They sent it down here. The pastor gave my mom and dad 20 acres of land. So in 1997, my wife and I came here, and on a missions trip, I was working for an organization called Youth for Christ, and she was working for Huntington University where we went to school. And as we got here, we were working on a small clinic where the old orphanage was, and somebody came to us and said, hey, there's a sick baby in Susmatla. Now, Susmatla is the village that you guys went to blow up a pool at, the restaurant. Yeah. That's Susmatla. So we raced down to Susmatla. We got there, and this little hut was this baby. And inside the hut was the bed. It took up almost the whole room. And the baby was sitting there on the bed, just sweating profusely. We prayed for the baby. The baby continued to get worse. We decided we had to take it to a clinic. So we got in a pickup truck. There was a driver, my wife sitting in the middle, the dad holding his 18-month-old baby daughter, and me standing in the back holding on for dear life because you've driven Haiti, you know. So we raced 30 miles north to a clinic. We arrived there. As we were walking up to the clinic doors, somebody from behind us said, hey, the clinic's closed. So as we turned to go back to the car, we heard, and at that point we looked at the baby and she died, right in her father's arms. So as we went back to the car, now we're getting in a car with the father holding his dead baby girl, my wife, the driver, and me. We come back, we come to Susmatla. We arrive in Susmatla, and the mother comes running out expecting great things to have happened, and she saw that her baby girl was dead, and she passed out right there on the ground. It was in that moment my wife and I began to let the family mourn. We left to come back here, but we started asking the question, why did this baby have to die? And we found out that she died because mom and dad gave everything they had to a voodoo priest, and she starved to death. So we got back on an airplane 2 days later, flying back to Indiana, and God really started to work on us. Started with my wife, to be honest with you. I heard God speaking to me and saying, go to Haiti and win Haiti for Christ, but I didn't want to because I had a kind of a cool plan going on in my life. I just got a new car. You guys that are kind of north of 35 here, remember the Eddie Bauer Explorer? It was a teal and tan. That's the car I had. I worked hard for it. So it was waiting for me in my garage. Loved to play golf. Loved the ministry I was in. But after 2 weeks of not being able to sleep very good and just continuing to hear Win Haiti for Christ, we gave a year notice to my employer, and in a year, in 1989, we moved here. We got here in 1989. We had 2 dogs, a Rottweiler and a Beagle, and 4 suitcases, and just a vision to see a nation change. We had 1 staff person at the time that was at the front gate, and the United States military came to us and said, hey, can we build you a school? So they came on campus and built an 8-room schoolhouse. Well, it just so happened, the way God makes things happen, that my wife's degree is in education. So she started her school our first year here. We had 230 kids come as soon as we opened the doors. Our greatest problem, though, was that kids were fainting in the classrooms because they were malnourished. You see, when the kids came in the first time, their bellies were bloated from worms. Their hair was orange, which in Haiti, that's a sign of malnutrition. And they were so weak they were fainting. So we started to give them food. What we did, we had no budget. So we bought a peanut grinder, and we nailed it to one of the few trees. How many of you have been shopping down there with the vendors? That big tree that's right next to them, that's where the peanut grinder was nailed to. We nailed it to there, and a lady called Madam Silvio, still works in our kitchen, she would crank this big crank and put raw peanuts in, and out would come a paste. It wasn't quite like Jif, but it was peanut butter. And so they'd put it on bread, and we gave the kids peanut butter and bread and juice, and it was amazing. With great education, the love of Christ and the knowledge of Christ, and food, we watched the transformation right in front of our eyes. These kids that had red hair, they started to get black. Their bellies started to smooth out. They started to think better, come to school more often. And we realized that God had something really cool happening in education. Today, we have over 2,600 children in our school. Unfortunately, you're not seeing them because they're on summer break like many of you. We just had our 6th graduating class this year, our biggest ever. We had 139 kids graduate. The miracle in that is 60% of the kids in Haiti will go to school, so 40% will never go to school. Of that 60%, only 10% will make it to high school. So think about you guys that are in school still. When you were in grade school or elementary, only 10% of those kids would go to high school. So if there's 110 of them went to high school. In high school, only 1 to 2% of kids in Haiti will graduate. And only about 1% will go on to another form of education, whether that be a trade school or university. So this year we had 139 kids graduate. We're just ecstatic over that fact. We also, our school is ranked in the top 5% of all schools in Haiti now, which is a miracle because mom and dad, most of the kids are sent here by mom and dads that have never been to school, can't read or write. Some of them can read and write, but most of them cannot. So the first generation students, and God's just blessed our school. They scored really high on the state scores. That's what gave them that 5%, top 5% ranking. Here's what we believe. If we give a child a great education that's Christ-centered with nutrition, we're going to see them grow up, leave us educated, get jobs of influence, and when we have them with jobs of influence, we have Christians in places of influence, and we can really see the nation change for Jesus Christ. We're seeing that happen. We have one girl, she was just here today. She's going tomorrow to she'll be in her 5th year of university in the Dominican Republic. She was in our first graduating class. Her mom works in our kitchen, and she's studying to be a pediatrician. So God's just doing phenomenal things. There's story after story like that. But education is central to what we're doing. By 2015, we're at 2,600 kids now. By 2015, we will be at 10,000 children in our school system, and impacting another 100,000 kids through education that we're doing outside of here. I would ask you to pray about sponsoring a child. We have over 1,500 children that are not sponsored in our school. And in September, we're bringing in 360 more children. So we need your help. If God puts it on your heart, it's $35 a month to sponsor kids. You can invest in them. You're the only sponsor. We don't double sponsor children. It'll just be you. So we'd love to have you help us with that. And you can meet your children. If you come back when school's in, you can meet them. You can write them. It's pretty cool. After being here about 3 months now, the school was built, school started. I was standing down in our first house, and someone came to us and said, I'd like for you to go to an orphanage. So I had no clue. I've been to a lot of orphanages, but I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I went to this orphanage. As I walked in, there was a tin roof, no walls, and a cement floor, and 60 children sitting on this floor. And it was something that I had never seen in my life. It literally looked like skeletons with skin stretched over. And as I walked around these kids, I prayed, God, what do I do with this? I don't know. I mean, I was called to win people for Christ, and here I am looking at all these kids. As I walked around, there was this one little boy sitting over in the corner, sitting in dirt, and he didn't have any pants on, and he had his shirt was over his belly because it was bloated with worms, and he had a huge orange afro from malnutrition. And I walked over to him, and he put his hands up to me. Now, I don't know if you've had this experience yet in Haiti. If you're here long enough, you're going to have this experience where you're at this crossroads. It's the crossroads of picking up somebody that has no pants on. It'll increase your faith. You start praying, God, help him to have already done his business. So this little boy put his arms up to me, no pants on. I'm going, oh, Lord, please help him not to pee. I picked him up, and he grabbed my neck so tight. He grabbed a hold of me and wouldn't let go for about an hour and a half. And this little guy was 13 months old, and it was like God whispered in my ear and said, this is your son. And I got freaked out. I mean, we'd been married 2 years at this point, weren't even talking about kids, just moved to Haiti, had zero budget, and so I put him down. And I came back here and I said, Vanessa, I said, whatever you do, you're going to this orphanage tomorrow. I said, whatever you do, don't pick up a little boy named Junior. She said, okay. So the next day she goes, I'm here working on the church. She goes to the orphanage. She walks in. She sits down in those middle of 60 kids. This little boy puts his hand on her hand, and she feels that he has a fever. So she calls a nurse. Her name was Marie Dunlap. Calls her over. She looks at him. She said, Vanessa, if you don't do something for this little guy, he's going to die. So my wife, whose heart is big as Texas, I said that for you. Grabbed him and brought him here. So fast forward a few minutes, I'm working on the church up on a ladder. I look over to the front gate. I see my wife walk in the door with this little boy the day before. God gently whispered in my ear, "It's your son." I walked over to her, and with all the mustard I could after being married 2 years, I said, "Vanessa, what are you doing?" And she said, "Brad, we're going to keep him for 2 weeks. We're going to get him healthy, and we'll send him back." Now, after being married 2 years, I bought that one. I've been married 15 years now, and I wouldn't fall for that one in a minute. But we took him home. And we really felt like after seeing this little guy that God was calling us to adopt him. And what happened was when we put him on the bed for that first week, he just would stare straight ahead, no emotion. But after 2 weeks of love and food and more love and more food, this little guy jumped to life, big dimple, started running around, and we knew he was truly our son. Today he's 13. He was here on the introduction. You'll see him at dinner tonight. But what we realized through JD is what we call him now. We realized that God had a plan for that little guy's life. Then there was another little girl that, and I'm trying not to embarrass her because she's here, that came into our lives as well a few years later. And she was abandoned, and we were able to bring her in, and she became our oldest daughter, Georgie. Georgie, stand up for a second. I embarrassed her really bad. But here's what we saw through our two oldest children, is that God had a plan for their lives. And just like they were destitute and didn't have hope for a season, there's over 400,000 children right now in Haiti that are without parents, sitting on the street somewhere. And here was my dilemma. Biblically, I had to do something. It wasn't about could I raise the money. It wasn't about, did I want to. It was about pure religion is taking care of orphans and widows. And we had to do it. So we started a place called the Hope House Orphanage. Today, this is the Village of Hope here. We have 61 children. We're working on a transition plan that in 2012 will take into effect where actually the kids at 15 will start to transition out into a village house that will be supervised by us. And then when they get to 18, they'll be transitioned to a home that they'll rent from us that will take care of them. And then when they're finished with either their schooling, college, technical school, or they're finished and just say, hey, we're finished with you, then they go off on their own. But one thing that we've seen through the kids, I was just in Texas last week, and I saw one of our first kids that went through here, Tony. He's studying to be a business, he's a business major. He'll graduate next year. After that, he's going to get his MBA. And I remember when he came to our front gate down at the mission, and he said, Pastor Brad, he said, my mom and dad have both died. They both died of AIDS and left 2 brothers. And I went to their house just to verify it, took a pickup truck, and I said, okay, I'm going to get their stuff. Went in and saw that they had nothing. I said, Tony, go inside, pack up everything you got, let's go. He went inside, and with 3 boys, he came out with a Walmart bag size of stuff. That's all they owned to their name. He came in, didn't speak any English. Came in here. That was the first night they'd ever slept on a bed. First night that they had ever brushed their teeth. This is the one that always gets me. Every kid that we bring in, the first time they eat, they'll gouge themselves. Yeah. This happens for about 2 weeks, where they eat, because they don't know there's going to be another meal behind them. So about 2 weeks in, it starts to settle out, where they go, oh, yeah, there's another meal coming in an hour, or a couple hours, there's another meal. But today, Tony, to talk to him, he's doing incredible. He's going to school, but he's also working at the grocery store. He's in the meat department, and he just got Employee of the Month. So that was pretty cool. But God's doing phenomenal things in all the kids' lives. I know you've got to know a lot of them. And we're thankful for what God's going to do and how He's going to do in all our lives and how He's going to use them. We're committed to them to see them through their education.